This is the Umbrella Academy on TV Podcast Industries. We're discussing the final ever episode of Umbrella Academy, Season 4, Episode 6, End of the Beginning.
Don't try to stop me.
Lila, please.
I can't just leave them here. What if they don't make it?
Then they don't make it. If you go with him, then this whole thing starts over. It doesn't end until all the marigold inside of us is gone.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I do. You do too. You have to let them go.
Welcome back, fellow Academy alumni. Take your shoes off. It's time to come back together for the finale of the Umbrella Academy with Season 4, Episode 6, End of the Beginning. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
I'm your other host, Chris, but please leave your shoes on. This is a good establishment. It's one of those fancy places. You can't take your shoes off.
No, it's just like Diego's house. Diego and Lila's house. Take your shoes off when you come in. Be respectful of their upholstery and carpets.
Okay, that's fair. Different. I thought you were making... I just thought you were being weird, like, kind of like, take your shoes off, take a load, you'll be fine.
No. I think it was just a funny little joke all the way through. Every time that Diego meets a member of the family, he just tells him to take the shoes off immediately. It's actually, I guess it's in his in-laws' house. That's probably why he's so protective of it, right?
Yes, 100%.
Anyway, we are
all
back.
Scared of the in-laws.
But we are back for the final episode of Umbrella Academy Season 4 and the final episode of all of the Umbrella Academy, Chris, huh?
Forever, ever, it's gone.
I know. Crazy to think, isn't it? After all these years, 4 seasons. And I feel like every season when we finished it off, we weren't sure whether we were going to get another season of the show. So it's kind of cool that we did get a finale and the end to the story for these characters and these actors as well. So, and the writers behind the scenes, as we've said, all the way through, the writers and directors have all directed multiple episodes, and the actors obviously been there since the start. So it's been a bit of a family in itself since the beginning of the show.
Yeah, and they without getting into it, that the end credits, where you literally see all of the writers and the actors and the producers and the cameramen and the stunt team, all these behind the scenes shots and photos, and just, it was beautiful to see because it was all the way back. Because I thought it was like, oh, this is just for this season, and then they threw in like a season 1. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was really nice touch. And, you know, as we've said before, it's kind of rare now that we get a show that gets its finale and gets its end. They always seem to leave the door open for something else to happen in the future. So it's kind of nice to have this end point and that post-credit scene, as you say, with the family sharing all the things they've gone through over the course of the last 4 years. So that was kind of nice to have an ending like that.
Yeah, ending on your own terms is always good. Ending on a suit's terms who's in an office and just decided you haven't got the right numbers to make it worthwhile for them. Not great.
Yeah.
So this, and I'm quite happy there's a definitive end. There is no like, oh, here, there's a spring of hope coming and like wisping out of a thing.
Yeah.
Nope, it is just, this is the end.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is like, there's no, now, any good writer worth his salt can turn what we see at the end of this and make something out of it. Absolutely. If they really wanted to continue, but I get the feeling it is not the case, and they have decided goodbye to this beautiful world.
Absolutely. Steve Blackman has moved on to something else. He's on to his next project, isn't he? So, and the rest of the team are obviously have moved on from the show now quite a while. This was filmed last year, so they've all moved on to other stuff. Show is finished, but I do always think my favorite example is Supernatural, which was written by Eric Kripke, who we of course have been following throughout The Boys. He wrote a 5-season show with a very definitive arc of how the show was going to end in the 5th season, and then slightly rewrote the finale of the 5th season, and it continued on for 10 more seasons under a different showrunner. So there's always ways to do it, as you say, if they did want to bring them back for something else in the future. So you never know. 10 years time, we might see the Umbrella Academy return.
Oh my God.
You never know. We'll still be
And
podcasting.
5 will
Chris.
still be in shorts.
5 will still be in shorts. 5 will be back in his school uniform. But we are, of course, going to into full spoiler-filled detail for the finale of Umbrella Academy. We're going to talk about all of it as much as we possibly can. So I hope you've watched the episode. And I hope you've enjoyed joining us. I know we're a bit late coming back with the final episodes of Umbrella Academy, but hey, it's kind of the opposite of what Dr. Malcolm says in Jurassic Park. Life got in the way this time, so that's all that happens.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, I had a sick baby.
Exactly.
Who required Dad to be on full dad duty 24/7 for a few days, which just when you're in full dad duty, you get no chance to do full podcaster duty.
Exactly.
So
it happens.
But we made it work, and we are here and ready to discuss this finale.
Absolutely, yeah. On to episode 6 of season 4, End of the Beginning. The show, of course, created for TV by Steve Blackman, developed by Jeremy Slater, based on the comic book series by Gerard and Gabriel, and directed this episode once again by Paco Cabezas, who I mentioned directed 3 of the 6 episodes this season, so put his stamp on the final season of Umbrella Academy. The teleplay for this episode was written by Jesse McKeown and Robert Askins and Christopher High and Steve Blackman. This is Robert's 8th episode, Christopher's 2nd episode of the Umbrella Academy, and Steve, of course, is the showrunner, along with Jesse McKeown, who wrote the story for the episode. He's the executive producer on the show, and this is his 8th episode as well. So, as I mentioned, lots of the people behind this show have been here for such a long time and been involved all the way throughout the seasons as well. So, a nice family finale.
Yeah, but should we jump into the summary for this episode?
Sure.
The Keepers set up a blockade around Ben and Jennifer's building, where their bodies have been severely mutated as a result of them interacting with each other. Viktor tries purging the Durango now inside Ben, but fails, and Ben and Jennifer merge to become the Cleanse. Abigail, hidden inside the body of Jean Thibodeau, kills his wife Jean when she begins to get suspicious. With both Thibodeau's dead, Abigail tells Reginald that she brought about the Cleanse because she shouldn't have been brought back to life and the timeline should be reset again. Meanwhile, the Umbrella Academy team up to try, but fail to stop the Benefer creature as their combined powers of Durango and Marigold inside them is overwhelming. 5, dejected at failing to stop the Cleanse, rides the timeline subway alone until he meets 5 from other timelines. They tell him that there is only supposed to be one timeline, and the splitting and merging of timelines, as well as the constant threat of apocalypse, is due to the existence of the Marigold and their family. When Reginald first released the Marigold in 1989, a side effect of women getting pregnant was also the creation of multiple timelines. 5 goes back to his siblings and tells them that they need to let the Cleanse absorb them and their Marigold. In doing so, they will cease to exist, but they will also create only one singular timeline without any apocalypses. Lila saves her family and Allison's daughter Claire, and then joins the siblings as they are all absorbed, destroying all but one timeline. In the one timeline, with the Marigold and Durango destroyed, friends and foe of the past live out their normal lives on a typical day where nothing exceptional happens. Finally, the Umbrella Academy have saved the day.
With no more apocalypses to come either.
We hope.
Well, at least not any caused by the Umbrella Academy.
True.
There was a kind of a sad moment in the episode where they're kind of going, oh, well, I guess we could accept sacrificing ourselves for the apocalypse. And then it's pointed out to them that not only are they sacrificing themselves, but they are going to die, and they will never have existed, and nobody will ever remember who they are. And it feels like a really sad thing to say in your final episode of a 4-season show that had, huge ratings to begin with. The first season of the show and second season of the show were massive hits for Netflix. Changed a bit over time as the show went on, of course, but that happens. But it just feels like a really sad thing to say that we are ending the show, you're all going to die, and then nobody will ever remember who you are. It just felt like a really sad moment.
I agree. I think it's... Let's get into our spoiler-filled discussion of this episode.
Okay.
Derek, do you want to go first? Because I have thoughts and opinions, but I want to get yours first. So where would you like to start? What was your big moment for this episode?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about my big moment, which is the coming together of all of the siblings, the Umbrella Academy returning with Lila, as is pointed out. But because it needed to happen, the show did need to end. We joked on last week's episode that it would just be Viktor being the most powerful member of the Umbrella Academy who will just stop the apocalypse from happening, and then the rest of the siblings wouldn't play any part in it. But of course, it's the final episode, so you do have to get the siblings together. But what I did like about it was they got them all together for, I guess, Christmas dinner at Diego's in-laws' house. They all go there, and they kind of just bicker with each other and kind of forget about the fact that there's an apocalypse coming and that they need to do something about it, until one of the kids points out that there's news on the TV. Hey, grown-ups, maybe you should be concerned about this news on the TV. They're all bickering with each other, particularly around the fact that Lila and Five have returned. And initially, they don't tell them that they've been gone for as long as they've been gone. They've been gone for the 7 years. They kind of fit back in with the family, and eventually Diego works out something's been going on, and he thinks his suspicions about Lila cheating on him were confirmed, that she was cheating on him with Five. And then they reveal what had happened, how long they were away, how long Lila effectively resisted going with Five. And Diego initially is understandably pretty freaked out by that. And of course we have Alison, Luther and Klaus watching on. Like, all they were missing was the popcorn buckets to enjoy the fight that's going on between Lila and Diego and Five here. But I kind of, I don't know, I kind of thought this was an interesting way of doing it, have them completely separate from it. Viktor is the only one that's actually at ground zero for the clowns going on, and the rest of the Umbrella Academy are all just sitting around bickering with each other. Supposed to be down there stopping the cleanse from happening. This was supposed to be their purpose for the whole season, right? But it's like as if they forgot.
Yeah. That's kind of the interesting part. Like, you're right. All we were missing was Klaus picking up a bowl of popcorn and just sitting there and eating it as you hear this. Because him and Alison, like, literally is like, "Ooh, the tea is being spilled."
Exactly. Yeah. Well, actually, isn't Alison going, "Oh, we should go," and Luther's like, "No way am I leaving this." Yeah. He really wants to see it.
So look, this for me was fun. This was the culmination and explosion that we knew was going to come in the last episode.
Yeah.
As it's just so awkward.
It is.
Oh, it's just it hurts my soul. At how awkward it is, but I suppose that's the realism that's almost come to expect somewhat from this show. That is siblings.
Yeah.
Now, I can't really say that's siblings who sleep with the brother's wife.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's happened in real life. And I don't have any experience of it.
Yeah, thankfully, yeah. Maybe
it just helps. I don't have a brother. That's why.
Yeah. But check out a couple of Premiership footballer biographies. You'll see how often it does happen. Sadly, yeah. but one of the other things, I suppose, it's the coming together of them and them going down to fight the clowns. We see Viktor inside fighting against Ben, trying to stop Ben, and Ben knocking out Viktor before properly merging with Jennifer. And as you probably saw from the synopsis, it's now Bennifer. We have official confirmation. Nobody else says it in the show, but that's definitely Bennifer, the merged two versions of these two Durango and Marigold fueled beings. But when the rest of the family come down, I don't know whether you felt this, Chris. We have seen them fight alongside each other a few times over the course of the season. We don't always see them using all of their powers at the same time, all 7 members of the family plus Lila. I thought they were pretty useless when they fought against the clowns.
They were 100%. This was one of the annoying factors for me.
Okay.
Because as children, they did learn how to fight. They did learn how to be a team. And then, over previous seasons, we have seen them be a bit more useful in a fight.
Yeah, but I think it does tend to be one member of the team uses their powers for one specific objective. And here we don't see that. We see all of them trying to fight alongside each other. And I think, if I'm right, the only time we've actually seen that happen was when they were costumed Umbrella Academy members back when they were in their teens. The bank robbery that they stopped, where effectively Ben killed all the bank robbers with his immense powers. But that's the only time I think we've seen them fight side by side as a costumed group of heroes. And Viktor wasn't there either. So Viktor was left at home. So it makes you kind of think, well, maybe it's been, a good 10, 15 years, really, since they all fought side by side with each other. And they don't use any of their powers in any way together at all, other than to get out of there. Klaus uses his new flying ability, for example, to fly Luthor out of there. And Five uses his jumping ability to get them in and out of a tight spot. But they are not combined together. I don't know why, but I thought Allison, for example, would try and use her powers to reach Ben inside the cleanse.
Yep.
She seems to try and then just sees Ben's face merged in the background. Effectively, you see him kind of coming out through the skin of the cleanse, if you want to call it that. And then she stops and gets knocked out, and then Luthor goes in to use his punching ability to get his hand stuck in the ass of the cleanse.
Yes.
But they seem quite useless.
It was. Now, look, it was fun to see from a cinematic perspective. I will say parts of the CGI were wonky.
Okay.
Just at the very beginning of this. Before, they obviously spent towards the end, they spent a bit more money on the CGI.
Well, can I give you a quote directly from Steve Blackman?
Okay.
This is the most expensive episode of Umbrella Academy since the first episode. It's more expensive than any episode of the Umbrella Academy that's ever been done. So if there's any wonky CGI, they didn't even have any more money to throw at us. They literally threw everything at the screen here.
Yeah. No, and look, again, if you're going to go for broke, you might as well, because this is literally the end of it. I was just, I enjoyed, because of what it is. It's the Umbrella Academy essentially losing the ultimate battle, losing against their Thanos, and getting destroyed for it. Yeah. So I just thought it was I'm so happy the way it turned out, but I was also kind of expecting a bit more. Oh yeah, I think I was expecting just a bit more from them. Yeah. I think that's the thing. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think because we had the Diego and Luthor fight last episode where they fought alongside each other and took out all the CIA agents, you kind of think that, if you get the other 5 members of the team back together, then they can all work together using their powers in different ways. Viktor, you use your powers over here, and Allison, if you do this, then Luthor leading them, and we have a little bit of build-up from Diego to Luthor saying how great a leader he actually is, and actually giving him a bit of praise for the first time, I think, since the first season. Diego actually praises Luthor, so I kind of thought that when they all get together, that Luthor would be the one to lead them into this big battle and tell them all their places, and they would finally come together as a team. But that's not what's going to happen in this final episode. So I really liked it. I liked having the group back together, and because it is more of a sibling fight to begin with, and then eventually we see them working together and having this battle, but not very well. So I liked it. There's loads more to talk about, but that's my favourite moment. Chris, what about yourself as a big moment for the episode you want to talk about?
Look, let's jump to the end, because I want to discuss the quickly 5 getting the realization, and then the basically the culmination of the storylines and the ending. So it is the Marigold's fault and the Durango's fault. The creation of Durango and Marigold and the usage by Reginald fractured the timeline. The creation of this is what has caused incident after incident of apocalypse after apocalypse after apocalypse. Yeah. One catch on that.
Okay.
The first apocalypse didn't happen until years later. So they cause the apocalypse, but usually all the other times there's always apocalypse. 4 days, 2 days, 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that was the one I was like, wait, hold on.
But wasn't it caused by Vanya finally coming into her powers at the time?
Yes, in the first one.
In the first season. That was the first apocalypse, was caused by
yes,
Vanya finally having powers and it exploding out of her, which broke the moon and killed the Earth, basically.
Yeah.
So again, I suppose you could trace it and say it was to do with
That's
Marigold.
her power. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
okay,
still,
that's fair. I didn't think of that one.
I think we had often said the line, and it's kind of inspired by The Simpsons, but we've often said the line that the Umbrella Academy are the cause of and solution to all of life's apocalypses. So you can kind of trace it back and say, yeah, if it wasn't for them, the world would not have an apocalypse at the level, at least. There may be another apocalypse to come, but not because of the Umbrella Academy and not the level that they have it. So I kind of get the realization here, and I kind of love how it was played out with Five dejected, really, after the battle with the cleanse, realizing they're not going to win it. He goes back into his safe place, I guess, into the timeline train system, subway system. I thought it was a really good thing for him to have time away on his own. It feels like within character of Five to just go, oh, screw this, I'm out. But some of the things that kind of led up to it as well, I thought was really well directed and really well written, where Lila and Five arrive back and everybody's kind of hugging Lila when she arrives back, but not very many people are around there for Five at all. They even criticize him when he's being quite quiet. You hear in the background Klaus going, oh, Grandpa needs his nap. He doesn't have real family members. He's got siblings. They all kind of criticize him, but at that point he's at his lowest, and there's no one that Five would be able to turn to and get support from, let's say, whereas most of the other siblings have someone by their side, and he's effectively just lost Lila, who was the closest of this group to him.
No, agreed. And it just gets worse. Because, well, no, hold on, it doesn't get worse. It gets better in that he meets his best friend himself.
Many of himself. Yes.
Many. Because that was fun. That was interesting to see how they did like all these other Fives. It's almost like that restaurant at the end of the universe. It's just like they've all given up. So just this might as well. One guy will be a chef.
Yeah.
One guy will just sit and read the paper.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun to see. And then the absolute crazy number of apocalypses that have happened. And it's fun to see that they're all continuing. Now, I would have loved to see some more variations, like here's a Five with one leg, here's a one eye,
right.
Here's a Five with like a crab monster.
Right.
Like all these different, just crazy versions would have been very fun.
I think Aidan Gallagher would probably still be filming it if he had to do that. So he plays about 15 different versions of himself, and they all look exactly the same. So it literally looks like he just got around the table in the same costume he was wearing and filmed the other side of it. Just to call it out, just because I did want to take note. So there. The Umbrella Academy shattered the universe 145,412 times. We've only seen 3 of them in the show, right? At this point.
So they could have kept going for a while.
Yeah. Could have had another 10 seasons of other apocalypses that had happened with the Umbrella Academy. But I do like it. I like all the Fives have been trying to put their heads together to work out what is wrong here, and the Five that's explaining to our Five what's going on is effectively just saying, look around the room here. Do you think this is what Einstein was talking about with the theory of relativity, with the idea of separate timelines? Do you think that was what is in his head, that you would be sitting in a room with 50 versions of yourself? That is not what's happening. Clearly, what's wrong here is that there is more than one timeline, and that should never have happened. That's the realization that they've come to, that the multiple timelines, that's always been a feature of Five story, particularly of all of the Umbrella Academy. Its Five story has been around these multiple timelines that he's been traversing across. That should never have happened.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed this as an explanation for it all. I could poke holes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as a whole,
yeah,
I really enjoyed it. It's like, they are the cause of and solution to all of the problems. And in order to solve to be the final solution, they are the solution. To end all the apocalypses, to end and make everything right again, the solution is the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, they need to go.
And they need to go. Or they need to, cease to be.
Exactly.
Forever be deceased. I could go on for a while with Monty Python.
No dead parrot sketch here, Chris. Yeah.
Um,
Again, I would say that's the one I probably could poke more holes in, but I'm not going to. I just enjoyed the concept. I enjoyed the idea. I don't really know how them dying of the cleanse in this one timeline where they're all together wipes them out from all timelines, but I love the visual of it. I love the way they showed the map in kind of a 3D version of all of the timelines as they were breaking back each of the timelines back to just one central timeline. I thought that was so well realized, and how you finish a show when you have 6 episodes to close out the show. But what did you think of Abigail and Reggie, their conversation between the two of them, where Abigail reveals the reason why she's turned on Reggie's plan? What do you think of that?
So this felt so strange to me.
Sorry, just pause you for a second, Chris. Did you say I hate you when I asked you that question?
No.
Okay, great.
I giggled.
Okay.
But I do hate you. But I love you for putting me on the spot.
Okay.
So this one grated slightly. In that, thinking this through, I get it. She, in her mind, she was meant to die. It was her time to go.
Yes. And
her being brought back by Reginald, basically, in her mind, was wrong thing to do. She was not aware of the other apocalypses, or she maybe was aware of them, but just there was no other pending apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that she was going to say, she was essentially bringing about the apocalypse because she wanted to end. She felt that she shouldn't be there and she needed to just end this universe.
Yeah.
Because it was not right.
Yeah.
So I was a bit like, it's a very harsh piece to this. So, and again, we don't know much about Abigail. Yeah. This was kind of, if Abigail had been like Mother from season 1, in season 2 and in season 3 and season 4, then you get, as similar to Ben, you get this sense of who the character is and their motivations. This just is, for me, felt somewhat, I want to say anticlimactic, but that's even too mean.
Yeah.
It just felt we needed an excuse for Abigail to be the reason the cleanse was happening.
Yeah. I know what you mean. And I think when I think about the scene that we got from Abigail talking to the siblings earlier on in the season when they came around to the house and she was talking to them like a real mother. She was kind of listening to them for the first time, something that Reggie never had done. And you have moments where she's really kind of calling out Reggie for pushing his agenda and not listening to any of their opinions and not listening to any of their ideas. I guess that's somewhere built in there, that she is her own character. And the only way we've seen Abigail since the beginning is through the eyes of Reginald, who says, I couldn't get through my life after you died, so my whole focus became bringing you back to life. So it's an interesting one, and I know what you mean. It's not taking anything away from your point, but I kind of like the idea that we've only ever seen this goal of Reginald's be to bring back Abigail, and we haven't had any of her personality and who she is and what kind of person she is or what kind of lizard creature she is underneath it all. And then when we find out who she is, underneath it all, she's going, I died, you should have let me die, because that was my punishment for creating Marigold. I was punished by the universe for bringing this thing into existence, and you tried to go against the universe by bringing me back, and I'm here to stop that. I kind of like that reveal in its own way. Would have been nice to know more about Abigail, but I do like that we've only perceived her through his opinion of who she was and what she meant to him, as opposed to her being her own character until this moment here where she goes, you should never have done that. I should never have brought Marigold into the universe, and you should absolutely not be bringing me back and rewarding me with a new life after everything I've caused, which is kind of interesting.
It feels very much to me like the Oppenheimer type thing, which is, I've created the ultimate weapon, I've created the ultimate issue, and my punishment is, I am now Shiva, I am the destroyer of worlds, I am that should not be.
Exactly.
When you put it that way, I understand. I think it makes a lot of sense. I feel they probably need at least another 5-10 minutes just to get that across.
Yeah. And I think, you're probably, as we always do with superhero shows and with any of the shows that we watch, you're kind of expecting to have a villain in here, Is Abigail a villain because she's wiping out all these timelines and the people that are there, or is she behind it all? Is she the true hero? Because what the Keepers have been saying since the beginning is, if all of these are wiped out, we all go back to our real timeline, the real place we're supposed to exist in, and continue on with our lives. So is Abigail the real hero? The Umbrella Academy were trying to stop apocalypses after they'd created apocalypses, led by Reggie, who all he wanted to achieve was bring back his wife, who had created them all from the beginning. And is Abigail the real hero here? Because she's going, well, actually, all we need to do is stop all this. I go back to being dead, and then the world can continue in that one true timeline. So probably because we're expecting to see a big mustache twirling villain. I think you even mentioned that last week with Reggie, whether he's working with Abigail. So it's kind of cool that it's actually Abigail being a really realistic character coming into her own at the end and going, actually, all your plans here with the Umbrella Academy, all the things you did to save me and get me back into the world, you should never have done them, and I'm going to wipe them all out by just allowing this cleanse to happen.
That's very fair.
There you go, Chris.
There you go.
That's my theory.
No, that's giving me some stuff to think about. That's fair. Different way of perceiving it. I will ask one question.
Yes.
Why is it Durango? Why is Jennifer in a squid? That's not revealed.
It's not at all. And yeah, I wonder if we should have seen more of that. Ben having the squid inside him and the appearance of Jennifer inside a squid. I think you always said that there must be something there. There must be something that's in the script that talks about that. No idea. No idea at all. Maybe the squid, because it's a giant squid, maybe the squid ate up the Durango inside of her, was attracted to it. It's a space squid. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. No idea. We didn't see.
I was hoping we'd get that one. That was the one I was like, just give me this. Yeah. The yin and yang. Give me that one is Durango, one is Marigold. Yeah. Of the same. I was just Like that was one I was like.
Yeah. It's said in dialogue, isn't it? But we don't really know how Jennifer arrived. We know. No. The Marigold created the pregnant ladies who gave birth to the 43 kids with Marigold inside, and we've had that story all the way along. This season's the first time we see Jennifer arrive, and the way that she arrives is as a 6 or 7 year old girl, right? Inside the squid, already with Durango inside of her. So maybe that's all the story is. Maybe she just arrived that way. She's birthed from a squid.
At the age of 7.
At the age of 7, or arrived, from space in the giant space squid, because the biggest squid ever found on Earth, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
Maybe it's a space squid that transported her to Earth.
Those space squids, always the worst.
I guess until Gerard Way writes that in to the comic book at some point in the future, because he did say that the Jennifer incident is an incident in the comic book that was referred to as the death of Ben, and it was never explained as to what it was in the same way in the comic book. So they wanted to make sure that it was included in the show, so we got an explanation for how Ben died, which is this whole concept really for the season.
But I've read somewhere now, this may be completely made up internet stuff, that this is not what his Jennifer incident is.
Yeah.
He just said this is a version of the Jennifer incident.
Exactly. Again, as we said last episode, they've got loads of timelines that they could just say, this is the Jennifer incident on this timeline. Or in another timeline, it may be a very different one. In the comic book timeline, we have a different version of it, yeah.
So all that then culminates in this beautiful circle of them essentially getting cleansed.
Yes.
There's a line given by Lila, which is essentially, thank you for letting me into your family, letting me be part of your family. That is 100% the writers allowing the viewers to be Lila.
Absolutely.
Which is, we have joined as part of the Hargreaves. We are part of this group of the Umbrella Academy.
Absolutely.
And so well delivered, so well timed, and just poignant as hell. That
Absolutely.
was my one bit on that.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I think there's some lovely moments, and I mentioned Lila being welcomed back by all the members of her family and the members of the Hargreaves family when she returned from the timeline 5, not really getting that moment. But I loved in this circle that we have little moments between each of the members of the family. Diego saying to Lila, you were right. Now I see who you are. I thought that was a lovely moment. I'm sorry, Chris, because I just know some of our listeners would want to make sure you got the line right. The line from Lila's, "Thanks for accepting me into your weird family." So, as always, there's a little bit of a dig at the family, which is the same that we see from Klaus as well. "I love you guys. You're all a-holes," of course. Yeah. So, you gotta end with something like that. So, and of course with Viktor and Alison, who've had that kind of on and off friendship throughout the last couple of seasons, we do have Viktor saying to Alison, when Alison says, "I'm sorry you had to come down to Canada for this," and Viktor saying, "There's no place I'd rather be. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." So kind of mending their relationship before they're gone at the end of the episode.
And we do get Lila and Diego holding hands, but a look of acceptance, of thank you, of I don't know. It's an emotion, but I can't fully describe between Lila and Five.
Yeah, she reaches out towards him to say, it's not something that she's, it's time now. They're all going to go. She's not holding anything against Five for what he did at this stage. It's, she's back. Diego's accepted her. But that's it. It's not this story and romantic story that's going to go on forever with Diego and Lila either. This is the end, and they're all saying goodbye for the final time. And it is a big moment to have them all there. It was quite emotional to watch, I must say. It was a really good.
It was a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
For me, that's and I suppose that's why my biggest moment is this, which is just it's a poignant ending to a series, 4 years of a series.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does wrap it in a bow. It ends with them doing the ultimate sacrifice to save the universe, the world, and everything in between.
Absolutely.
And it was just, there's no, they don't return on the other side.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest, for me, that's the biggest kind of stamp of what the Umbrella Academy was, which was not always Marvel roses, DC's Zack Snyder kind of depressing. It's this beautiful yin and yang of both.
Yeah. You
get the quirky weird of Ant-Man, but you also get the depressingly sad Batman or Superman. Yeah. You get that, it's both. So you do get them saving the world, and everyone is back, and everyone's free, and the kids are safe, and the family's safe. But the family's no longer available.
Yeah.
The family is no longer there. And all you have instead is some marigolds under a tree.
Yeah.
Which is very blossoming.
Yes.
Marigolds under a tree.
Yeah, that little post-credit scene, just in case anybody missed it, it's after the photographs of all of the team behind the scenes. We have the marigolds, and I love how they grouped them as well. They have the 7 members of the Umbrella Academy, and then just one off to the side, which is Lila. So they have all 8 as well. Lovely touch.
Lovely touch.
That's kind of the big moments from the episode, really. It is all about the finale. I was kind of surprised that we had Abigail and Reggie sitting on the bench as she explained the plan that we just have to let this happen, and then the cleanse monster just eats both of them into darkness. So I was quite surprised that that's the way they went out there. Very surprised that the Thibodeaux, who had been quite central characters, Jean and Jean, had been quite central characters throughout the season, that we lost Jean's character last episode, and then he murdered his wife in front of all of the keepers in this episode, as they're all kind of calling out, going, "But didn't she set up this movement? How can you kill her? Then she's gone against the movement, I was quite surprised that that's how their story ended, that it was just kind of, okay, that was just to explain, I guess, about these different timelines, but really behind it all, it's Abigail and what she's planning to do, and she's just planning to let the cleanse happen. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that the Jean and Jean, one of the Jeans would actually have been Abigail all along, or something more along that lines.
Yeah.
Because then you would have Abigail behind the keepers.
Yeah.
But it just seems like they were their own thing anyway.
I know what you mean. You kind of think that maybe was Abigail leaving breadcrumbs to encourage the keepers along or something like that. I wonder, I'm not mad at this, honestly, but I wonder whether Nick Offerman or Megan Mullally was supposed to be in the show, and they pitched for the two of them to be Jean and Jean Thibodeaux as a married couple, so they could work together on the show. I wonder if they pitched the idea of having the two of them together in the show. They've been fantastic. They've had some amazing scenes throughout the show, and I really love seeing the two of them work together. But I know what you mean. It would make more sense in the writer's room to go, well, Dr. Jean Thibodeau is one character and Abigail in the skin of somebody else is leading this group and we don't know who she is by the end of the season. You know, I just wonder whether they just pitched that so they could work together. Why not? It's great to have them.
No, exactly.
And we wouldn't have had our dance sequence this season if we didn't have Jean and Jean Thibodeau, so.
I was hoping for one final scene.
They did do a nod to it. Did you get the nod?
In the room itself. In the mansion.
Kind of, but the nod to it is the when it eventually breaks down to the one timeline, we get a cover version of I Think We're Alone Now, which was the original dance sequence from season 1. So a little cover version to score that's what, you know, that's what this group were like back in the first season. So had their big dance sequence together. So
that's okay. That's fair. Yeah, there's obviously a few more tiny little things that we have. Reginald kind of being Reginald throughout this, kind of being pushing back up until he meets Jean. He is still that take the shot, doing all like being Reginald.
Yeah.
Again, he is just forever an a-hole.
Yeah.
In his own way.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, because Ben is separated from Jennifer, he knocks out Viktor, and that's when Reggie says to take the shot. Because he's shot by Reggie, Jennifer then merges with Ben. It's not 100% clear, but is that Reggie causing the cleanse, causing the two of them to merge effectively?
Yes. Well, because he said take the shot, and then Ben sees the bullet and throws Viktor out of the way.
Yeah.
Which then causes Jennifer to reach out to Ben.
Merge the two of them together. Yeah.
And it causes that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is the cause of the apocalypse in this one.
Once again.
And actually, in actual fact, we learn he is the cause of the apocalypse in all the world.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because he releases the marigold.
Yeah.
So it is his fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Theoretically. Exactly. Any other kind of bits or notes from yourself, or any moments you want to call out?
I think the notes really are about the callbacks, because it's the final episode of the final season. One of the ones I really liked was Five riding the subway when he goes off on his own. It's to a song by Noel Gallagher and the High Flying Birds. Back in season 1 of the show, the episode which had Five on his own after the apocalypse, in episode 5 season 1, it was also scored by Noel Gallagher and the High Flying Birds, which I just think is a nice little touch, that you'd be able to have a song by them each time underscoring Five. I don't know who the Noel Gallagher High Flying Birds fans are in the show, but it was kind of nice to have it. He's got a very specific type of voice that just works really well for those scenes, so I really like that. And then I guess the big reference at the end in the one timeline is that we have so many cameos from cast members from the past. We see the Swedes playing frisbee, which is quite cool. After we see Lala's family and Claire, they were the murderous Swedes that we saw back in, I think, season 2, maybe even season 1. We also see Hazel and Agnes in there walking down the path. We see the handler talking on a cell phone after she'd gone for her run while stretching. Grace is there, mom. You mentioned mother earlier on from season 1 and 2. Yeah, she's seen pushing a baby in a stroller. So this time she's not a robot; she's an actual mother in the real world. We see Herb and Dot. Herb, who of course plays Pogo in the show as well. Herb and Dot, who'd worked for the commission. Interestingly, we hear Five point out to himself that he's the one that set up the commission, or one of the Fives set up the commission as well. So they were the ones trying to stop the apocalypse. That was quite cool.
He was the man in the iron lung.
Yes, exactly. That we saw, but just kind of calling that out in the episode. Finally, we also see Gabriel there. He's doing the sketch right next to Herb and Dot, so he gets to be in the show, the illustrator of the original Umbrella Academy, as an artist in the episode, which is quite cool. I have also heard rumors. I didn't see it myself, so I can't confirm, but I have heard rumors that Five's mannequin wife is also in the scene, but I didn't see her.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
The mannequin that they used, she's kind of peering out from behind a tree, apparently, in one of the scenes. So I had to check back and see that again. But I love that. I love this idea. Apparently, they didn't tell any of the members of the cast, didn't give them any scripts or anything, what they should be doing and what they should be saying. They just kind of gave them costumes, said, play in the park. like you're playing in the park, and the only people that were aware of what the storyline for the show was the family of Lila and Diego's family and Claire. They're the only people that knew what was going on. All the rest of the cast that came back from previous seasons had no real idea what they were doing and what it was for. But it's for the one timeline.
Yes, the universal timeline, which is a nice way to end. That's it. Like, there is the sacred timeline.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard that before.
Well, yeah, actually, keep a note of this, Umbrella Academy fans, because in a couple of years' time, Marvel's going to be doing exactly the same thing. This happened in the comic books when they had all these multiple timelines, multiple multiverses, as they call them in Marvel, where they wiped them all out and went back to one central timeline. So let's see how Marvel decide to do it in the future.
Yep. With the Doom is going to be
coming after Secret War, isn't it? Right.
It is. So Avengers Doomsday. Where we see Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, and then the Avengers Secret War. Yeah.
And then after that, we'll be back to one timeline, is what we expect. One universe, one timeline, supposedly. Anyway, but this has nothing to do with the Marvel Universe. We're back to Umbrella Academy. Chris, overall, what did you think of the finale of the Umbrella Academy?
I really enjoyed it. There's definitely a few holes.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels somewhat, I have questions on some of it, and those were mostly just the holes. But as a whole, for just this episode, I enjoyed it because it closed, it gave me satisfaction in a lot of things, and it was very poignant where it needed to be poignant. It was emotional when it needed to be emotional, and it just really highlighted each of the characters in a way that was good.
Yeah.
That is their character. As a bookend for this season, I really enjoyed it. It made sense from beginning of season 4 to the end of season 4. It was a good story.
Yeah.
In its entirety. As a bookend to the series, I really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
I loved it because it really you could now watch this season 1 to season 4, and it actually does make sense from beginning to end. Like, there is a connected story. Now, probably wasn't what they were always going to do. And yes, there's been ups and downs, as with any other series. But they really did tell what the story that they wanted to. They put the end on the story they wanted to. And they didn't leave a door open. Now, again, yes.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Any writer could kind of go in and go, and from those 8 marigolds, suddenly a wisp comes out of pollen and creates a load of people.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You can do it that way. But in theory, their sacrifice, they were the cause of and solution to all the apocalypse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's just a poignant, nice way of putting the kind of bow on it. So I really enjoyed this episode, this season, and this series. Excellent. What about yourself, Derek?
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I really enjoyed this overall. One of the things with this season is that we haven't had as much time to spend with each of the individual characters, getting those individual episodes like we got in season 1, 2, and 3. So some of the characters have felt that they've had a lot less screen time, like Klaus, for example, who's been probably one of my favorite characters since the beginning. But to put this kind of capper on the show, which was surprising in a couple of ways. I think the Abigail reveal was a massive surprise, and how she revealed what her overall plan is, which is just to allow the cleanse to work and wipe out the universe, because Reggie wouldn't even listen to her opinion over the years. I thought that was a really good reveal. But closing it out that the Umbrella Academy had to wipe themselves out of all timelines as well, not only to say we're sacrificing ourselves to stop an apocalypse, it's we are going to sacrifice ourselves to stop all apocalypses and return it back to a timeline where none of us existed. I thought it makes so much sense for the show, but it is really sad and really well handled as well. They're still backbiting all the way till they get covered by the cleanse, of course, because they're those kind of siblings, but really enjoyed it. thought there was lovely moments, really emotional, and yeah, to close it out with this one timeline and bring back so many of the other characters to just a normal day, which is unaffected by Marigold, apart from the marigolds that are growing over the corner. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a lovely way to end out the series, and I can kind of see, if you're a big fan of these characters, I can kind of see how ending a show where all of them are gone probably would rub you up the wrong way. So I think we're going to have a little bit of feedback. Some people a little bit more unhappy with the show than others, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there that would have loved to have a 5th season. But if you know your story's going to end, give it an ending that's definitive and close it out like this. That's what I much prefer.
Yeah, no, the ultimate sacrifice. That's the thing. They are the ultimate heroes because they made the ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly.
That's the way I see it. But you spoke of some feedback. So let's get some message from the future in our feedback section. But don't forget, if you have liked this episode, if you've liked what we talked about in Umbrella Academy, there is all 4 seasons of us discussing every episode. But you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and check out each and every episode, all the other shows we are covering there. And if you really enjoyed what we've covered over for the last 4 seasons, head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you can support us monthly for any amount, or you can do a one-off donation by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI and buy Derek a coffee as he toils away the wee hours of what will be editing the apocalypse out of all the mistakes.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to all of you that support us over there on Patreon and on Buy Me a Coffee over the last couple of years. It's been really good to have you with us for our coverage of Umbrella Academy. And yeah, all those of you who sent in feedback to us, all of those that have liked the post, shared the posts, said your lovely comments about the podcast as well. We appreciate all of them. Thank you so much for that. So let's get into some feedback from our wonderful fellow Academy alumni. We'll start off with Coffee and Vodka, who has some feedback on the season overall. He just sent in one for the episode because we didn't know what way we were going to be recording. So thanks very much for that, Coffee and Vodka. He says, "Greetings, fellow self-sacrificing defenders. Firstly, congratulations to Derek and John, your wedding. Hope it all went well. Speaking of love, it turns out this was what this season was all about in most of its variations, up to the team Christing itself in the end, but without the credit. The only continuity error was in Abigail's cleansing of both the Marigold and Durango elements and the timeline. It should have only affected this timeline, even if this was very baby with the bathwater. Once the timeline became as branched off, convoluted and various as it had, you would have to reproduce the same scenario in every timeline outside of the main one, according to logic and the fives. Much easier not to have introduced Marigold via her Psy persona at all, but then there'd be no show, I guess. Still, nice to see the gang one last time, even if they had to introduce me to something I'd managed to avoid for 9 years. For that, may they be sent to baby shark hell." My favourite moment of the season, Jean and Jean's dance. What about yours? 4 5-filled delicatessens out of 5 for me. Peace and take care. Coffee and Vodka. Great stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Chris, what do you think? Did you have a big favourite moment of the season so far?
Mine is just the introduction of the characters again in the episode 1.
Yeah.
So more just even seeing 5 in the coming out of the Keepers Anonymous meeting, and then going back to the CIA.
Yeah.
And just getting that reveal, that was really, for me, just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course it's going to be a spook.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, I loved that he ripped off his terrible mustache as well, and then it became a running joke for the whole season. That's great. Yeah, just, there's so many great moments with these characters, of course, throughout the season. I would have loved a big dance sequence. There's no way they could have fit it in. I can't think of a reason why you would have all of them in a room doing a dance sequence, even like they did in the first season.
You could literally have done it. If you really wanted, you could have had them dancing in a circle.
Maybe.
Something as the universe came in, but then you lose all the other aspects of that emotional kind of ending. Yeah. So what the dancing give, dancing taketh away.
Exactly. And at least we got Jean and Jean dancing to Cher, which was a good fun scene as well. But you see, Coffee Vodka has exactly the same question as I do. The cleansing of this timeline by the cleanse, it wouldn't wipe everything back to all of its previous timelines, I guess, but I'm going to accept it. That's what they chose to do.
The only thing I can think of is that in all the other timelines, the Durango and Marigold never touched. And the Durango and Marigold, when they touch, is like a nuclear bomb for all timelines.
Maybe.
That's the only way you can really explain it.
Yeah.
But again, that's me making my own headcanon up for it.
Yeah.
Which is, it's fine.
Because they didn't say it. Yeah. This effectively, they were saying that it had merged with Ben. The Durango had merged with Ben, and they were the only other pieces of Marigold left in this universe where the two had met. So we'll all pool together, and once it's taken all the Marigold from this universe, it'll all return back, right? Without us ever having existed, I guess, is the way, right? So, yeah. But great stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Next up, we have a voicemail on the season from Lara Willie Swink, who had this to say. Because I didn't want y'all to strain your voices reading my very long feedback, I had a lot to vent about. Cheers, Lara.
Greetings and salutations, friends across the pond. This is Lara. First off, congratulations to Chris on your wee babe, and congratulations to John and Derek on your nuptials. I'm so happy for all of you. It was a delight to hear you guys cover the final season of Umbrella Academy. Unfortunately, I'd have to say that your podcast was more of a delight than the final season itself. I don't know if I will be in the minority or majority in my opinion, but personally, both me and my daughter found this an uninspired season and a really disappointing ending for our favorite cast of characters. First off, the absolute character assassination of some of my favorite characters, that being Klaus, Five, and Lila. Klaus, who was always a chaotic character, but had so much charm and charisma, goes from a sheepish germaphobe to completely off-the-rails sex slave who's being trafficked by his drug dealer. I mean, I realize he didn't want the marigold, but I don't feel like giving him his powers back was going to drive him so off the rails. I mean, I felt like he was in a different psychological place that he could handle his powers, but apparently not. And after that, we don't get to see much of Klaus. Not much is done with his character, and he in fact spends an entire episode in a doggy coffin, which must have been a very big dog because it fits a full-grown man. Then we get this mess with Fivela. I realize that time has passed and Five is no longer a 14-year-old, but come on. Lila has known this boy since he was a teenager, and he's her brother-in-law. Okay, I know mentally he's probably 60 or something, but no, I felt so uncomfortable and so cringy. I mean, I know we have sibling attachments via Luther and Allison, and it's not unusual for this family, but it just left me so uncomfortable. And also, Lila seems to have no deep feelings for her children in the earlier episodes. She seems to bemoan this boring suburban life she's been leading. But when she has to lose her family in the end, she's absolutely crushed. And I understand that might be from the 7 years of living without them as well. But we get this very emotional scene from her as her family leaves. And yet, Diego, we see nothing from. And in my mind, he seemed like a much more involved father. And we get to see like none of the emotions that he's feeling in losing his family. We get no empathetic scene for him. He doesn't even get to say goodbye to his family, really. Also, the storyline just felt all over the place with no clear direction. Some of the family had similar but altered powers, and some had completely new powers. In the case of Allison and Lila, they kind of had their powers, but were maybe powered up, and then their powers just completely change. I don't know what was going on, and to me it felt like the powers were just there to serve the story. We never find out how Hargreaves' wife was returned to life. We never find out what the heck happened to Luther's love of his life, Sloane. Did he even mention her this entire season? I don't feel like he did. Why did Ben make it to this world and she didn't? Don't know, don't care. That was last season. Lastly, the whole J.R. Hewing ending of it all. For my friends across the pond or the young folks who've never heard of it, J.R. Hewing was a main character on the American soap opera Dallas who was shot in a season finale, and it created this major cliffhanger with the ubiquitous question of who shot J.R. Well, when we finally found out who the killer was, we come to find out that it was all a dream that his brother Bobby had, and it never happened. That's how this ending made me feel. It never happened, and everything we saw was a dream. I did like getting to see all of our excellent side characters at the end, happily enjoying a non-apocalyptic world, but I feel like the ending basically said to us, these characters we all loved were a bunch of screw-ups and mistakes, and the world is better off without them. Maybe a little morbid and nihilistic. Maybe Derek and Chris, you have a more positive spin on the finale, but I didn't like it. And it just made me want to go back to season 1 and see happier, or at least existent, times for our misfit Hargreaves family. But thank you guys for covering the series nonetheless. I always love to hear your takes, whether sweet or sour. And until the next apocalypse, bye!
Thanks so much, Lara. As I said, Chris, I knew there was going to be some contrary opinions to our opinion on the show. I have enjoyed the season. I do not have any challenge or any issue with anybody who would feel this way about the show ending with the kids being wiped out from the entire universe and their history, because I think I said it right up front of this episode. That was a really sad line where it was where they were going to sacrifice themselves, make the greatest sacrifice, and then told, but nobody will remember you. You will never have existed. We're going to wipe you out completely from the timelines. It felt like a really sad line, but I take it like that. That's written into the story. That is them saying this is the end of your time, and it's a really sad way to tell them, and everything that you did won't have been seen by anybody else. But I think in this story, that's kind of what you expect. They've moved in and out of timelines. They've moved in and out of different time periods over the course of the last couple of seasons. And have gone unnoticed by everybody other than their original actions as the costumed Umbrella Academy. Whereas now what they're saying is even that's going to be wiped from the timeline.
Yeah, I can understand the way, because Larry, this is the joy of having this podcast. I get to, when Derek and I discuss, usually sometimes he sees some of my opinions, I see some of his, or we just kind of come to agree. I see some of your rationale. I do. I think there's different lenses on it. I think for me, I think it's less of who shot JRing and more just taking a stance in the story. And it's more, not that the world is better off without the Hargreaves and these groups of misfits and that they're no longer there. It is that they have, in order to save the world or worlds, and for Alison's kid to survive, for Lila's children to survive and her family, they must make that. And for everyone else, they must make that. But they don't do it alone. They do it as the family unit and Lila. They do it as a group of misfits, of a-holes, of people who hate each other and love each other all in one piece. And I think them making that is what, for me, makes the perfect ending. And again, the cynic in me says they're no longer in it, so if Netflix decide to make another series and season, Umbrella Academy 2 or the Umbrella Institute, they can replace the actors with just different misfits. Yeah, and I keep using Misfits because Misfits is Robert Sheen's other show about superpowers. And you can do different actors and different power sets and things, and it doesn't feel like it's destroyed that. Yeah. And this for me was, I can understand you feeling that, and I think that's the interesting thing. I think everything is both all true and both different. Your view take on how they've played it is different than mine, but again, I think they're both valid. Yeah. I like to see Lila. I see Lila getting happy as moving on from when she thinks her family is dead and her husband is dead, but then jumping straight back to her husband because she finds out he's alive again. Yeah, kind of thing.
Like one day afterwards, absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned, Chris, about possible spin-offs and possible future versions and if they would ever come back to the Umbrella Academy. I think it's pretty much definitive that by the time it got to the last season of Umbrella Academy, the viewership had gone to that point where Netflix were saying, we're going to close this out. It was once a big show for us. Yeah. We're going to have this as our final season. And in fact, as far as I remember, there was talk about the Sparrow Academy spin-off at one point, which is interesting again because of, as you mentioned in your feedback, Lara, Sloane isn't in this season, as are none of the other members of the Sparrow Academy. And I believe there was talk about having a Sparrow Academy spin-off, which would have told the story of what happened to the rest of those Academy members, which has now been cancelled. It's now not going to happen. But I guess that's part of the reason why it was kept separate. I did think by the end of the season, if we were going to have a resolution where the kids were alive, where the Umbrella Academy stayed alive, we would have had Luther reunited with Sloane. He did mention it in the first episode. He did mention that, to Diego, when he bemoaned living that suburban lifestyle, he said, well, I wish I was able to have that with my Sloane. That would have been all I wanted. But she's gone, and at least you've got Lila. At least you've got your wife and your kids. It might not be the perfect life, but at least you've got one, And by the end of the season, the arc of Luther in the season is that he is able to accomplish and achieve great things, even though he's a stripper living in a rundown house, right? That's the moment that he has with Diego at the end of the season. I totally get your point about Lila being the one that gets to say goodbye to her family. I do think that is her being away for 7 years. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, I guess, is the thing with Lila. She does say to Diego she will never stand in front of her family and moan about them and moan about the fact that she's living the suburban life. She keeps that to herself and creates this other life where she's investigating the Keepers, separate from that family, because she has to live her life day by day and is experiencing the same things that he is. But it doesn't excuse her running off with the family, taking them to the train and then coming back, and Diego going, so are they all safe? Yeah, okay, off we go. And that's kind of all he says. He doesn't have a moment where he says goodbye and is really sad about the fact that he won't be spending eternity with the family. But I don't know, part of that scene is Lila making that decision that she is going to take them away, and she may not come back. She may go and join them all, even though that might spoil the apocalypse, right? That's the argument. She thinks she'll run away with them, take them into the timeline subway and not come back. That's why Five goes down and convinces her to come back. So it's not like a big farewell sending them off on the train to their happy destination. She doesn't know what's going to happen, and she thinks she's going to run away with them and stay with them. It's only when Five goes down and convinces her to come back, because the plan wouldn't have succeeded if it wasn't everybody with Marigold inside them. That's what we're told. So, I can totally see it. I'm sorry for them that the final season didn't hit with you, but I liked it as a capper on the show. Yeah,
agreed. But thanks for the voicemail, Laura.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you'll follow us to some of the other shows like Agatha All Along.
Yeah,
coming very soon.
Absolutely. I know Laura's a big Sandman fan, so hopefully you'll be following us along when Sandman returns next year as well. Thanks, Laura. Over onto Facebook, Chris.
Yes. First up, we have some feedback from John Daniel, who had this to say. What a lovely ending. I'm so sad it's over, but that was a fantastic story. Thanks, John. Yeah, so sad it's over. But what is it? It's better to have loved than lost than never loved at all.
There you go. Absolutely.
That's the end. That's the fact that we had it even for 4 seasons is amazing.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, John. And I do have some feedback in from Dr. Bob Phillips on the final episode as well. He says, was the whole of the Umbrella Academy full of sound and fury, signifying nothing because, like the eternal serpent, the end ate the beginning? Absolutely not. The finale took us back to the start through the lives and the not normal family they have become to an acknowledged and accepting death. It showed us good, if agonizing, separation from those we love, preparation for the years ahead, and memorializing the time they have left. And we got Clace on the couch doing a real-time reaction video of popcorn to the crumpling of the love triangle. And perhaps just for Chris, Pogo showed up at the very end to bracket the whole run. It was gorgeous, even if the cleanse special effects did throw me a little bit. Thanks, Dr. Bob. Yeah, you've got the same question that Chris has about the special effects. I do wonder, it's interesting, isn't it, that they did spend so much money on this, and both yourself and Chris mentioning the special effects for the cleanse didn't really work for you. But yeah, great point there. We didn't mention about Pogo doing the final voiceover at the end saying, everybody's here just celebrating a normal day as well. Yeah, nice little touch there, having him in there. And I think one of the last faces we see is the actor who played him, who plays Herb as well. So yeah, nice little Ouroboros moment in the episode. Thanks, Dr. Bob, for your thoughts, and thanks for sending in your thoughts throughout the season as well. And we also have some feedback in from Marie Eichel, who says, so many great parts of the finale. 5 of the subway diner with the other 5s figuring it all out was fantastic. Loved the whole family gathering for Christmas and trying hard to be normal. Seeing the emotional journey for Diego of appreciating his life to the sadness and anger of almost losing Lila to 5. The ending was beautiful and sad. I feel like Lila was speaking for all the fans when she said, "Thank you for letting me be part of your weird family. We'll really miss this show." Thanks, Marie.
Thanks, Marie. And yeah, that's what I called out. And as soon as that line was said, I was like, oh, that was for as a proxy for the audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But a huge thank you to you, all of our wonderful listeners, for joining us and joining our family, our weird family of podcasters.
It is very weird.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure over the last 4 years to be covering this show, especially with you, Chris, and thanks so much for bringing it to us. I wouldn't have been covering the Umbrella Academy if it wasn't for Chris saying how much he loved the comic books and that he wanted to cover the show. So I'm delighted to make it part of our family of podcasts that we've covered over the years. It
could have been worse. I could have really pushed you to cover Jupiter Ascending.
That's right.
Which came out around the same time and was bought. The rights were bought at the same time by Netflix. That's a whole other show.
Well, we've said we did watch the screeners for that and decided it wasn't worth the amount of time it takes to podcast that show. So thankfully, the Umbrella Academy has been well worth our time over the last couple of years.
100%. But yes, thank you, Academy alumni. As always, it's a pleasure. But do follow us over at tvpodcastindustries.com and come over to some of our other shows. We do a host of shows, everything from Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, to the MCU stuff, the films, and the upcoming show, Agatha All Along. If you're a Star Wars fan, we have loads of Star Wars animated stuff, and we recently covered Acolyte Season 1, and the only season of the Acolyte, but who knows? Maybe they decide to bring it back. I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah, it's just the recent spate of cancellations of LGBTQ plus shows like Umbrella Academy itself. You know, this is the new world. I lived through the 90s. There were tons of shows for loads of diverse people back in the 90s, and then they just started to cancel them all and make you back to your standard shows. And it seems like we're going back through that again, going back through that cycle. Get rid of all the diverse shows. It doesn't make us enough money. We have to make it for Middle America, 60% of the population, or all those people who fall asleep in front of their TV and keep the advertising rolling. So that's where it's going, unfortunately.
This is the way, unfortunately. But remember, it is secular, and these shows, the diversity will come back.
In about 10 or 15 more years. Yeah, apparently.
Yes, unfortunately. But until that point, you can cover the good shows that we do cover, because we pick good shows for everyone.
Yes, we do.
And we will end on a high by saying, if you haven't, make sure you read the comic books. They're okay, very different, but do read them if you enjoy them. If you enjoy reading, read a comic book. If you don't enjoy reading, read a comic book, because it's just lots of pictures too.
It's some great pictures.
So I think it's the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And of course, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And there is no next time, but there is a world without us. Bye.
There's always a next time in TV podcast industries, Chris, just not in this particular podcast feed. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. We are going the way of the Hargreaves.
No, because then we'd be wiping all the episodes that we've already released. They'll all stay out there. They'll all stay there. I promise I won't wipe any of them. But of course, we will talk to you next time on TV Podcast Industries. And since this is the final episode of the Umbrella Academy, we'll leave you with the full version of the theme for our Umbrella Academy podcast, which has always been emotional blockbuster by Raphael Cruz. Thanks so much to Raphael for making this tune and allowing us to use it for the podcast. Bye.
Bye.